Hello and welcome to Dr. Deep State. Well, I have a bombshell for you today. Before I continue, I have a little guest that wants to pop in here. Lillian
Hello.
Rose, how you doing today?
Good.
Fabulous. Thanks for joining us. So, let me tell you what I'm up to. When I woke up this morning, I was fine with the world if I never did another video. But something stirred around in here today, and I think it's one of these sort of make or break things with Dr. Deep State. I think either things are going to go in this direction, and I'll probably have to make some more videos, or not so much. So before I get to the bombshell, I want to point out that Dr. Deep State's been around a bit over 3 years. I had been doing some deep scholarly work with parallel governments and parapolitical governments. And occasionally it was called in academic studies deep state scholarship. When this word popped out in the media and was just being butchered, I thought, you know what? I'm going to get out there and talk about the scholarship of the deep state and what it means. I connected it with this concept of biopolitics and the concept of empire building to make a course, which are videos 1 through 104, called Dr. Deep State, where one could look at this as a course with academic scholarship, have this connected to the concept of oligarchy, and have it as an alternative frame of reference to the world about what's going on, what the deep state, perspective upon the deep state, and something certainly different than what was available in academia. So that's what I was up to. And yeah, it is what it is. My particular take on it was that I saw the events that were going on, the true deep state, the depths of the deep state, as being part of a supernatural conspiracy against God and man, uh, conspiracy of biblical proportions. And those thoughts in particular I developed in my book, Seeing Through the Singularity. And part of what the Singularity agenda was this manufactured campaign toward Armageddon. So there was this grand deception in sort of the end times of human affairs that I dwelt on. But I'm going to put another twist on that today, something that's sort of new to my own thinking. It's still the end of human affairs, and the direction of this deep state is this idea that I present in my book of cosmic inversion. So I'm thinking of things at, this sort of large level, but I want to pull things down and get into our own time and space. Every one of my videos, I'm still very comfortable today, whichever one you want to go to, will speak to the very current state that we're living into, the rise of the scientific dictatorship, with the sort of a special significance given to the international health organizations and the deference the world community has toward these experts in the time that we're living in. So, where am I going? Well, let me call reference right now to an event that just happened. So, whereas all of the videos that I've developed in the past, I had a sort of confidence where the direction of history and events were going. Today, I'm kind of exposing myself, and I'm going to sort of be a little bit prophetic, because what I'm going to present to you is just so different, I think, from what appears to be happening right now in the world, and sort of the direction that I thought things were going. So let me explain a little bit. This event that happened recently was called the Return. The chief spokesman was Jonathan Kahn, um, and it was a massive event in Washington, D.C., that involved many of the monuments there. And it was a return to, I guess, a type of repentance and a turn toward the Constitution and natural law and things of that sort, and the kind of the religion of the founding fathers. So Why is why is that strange? Well, the idea was this event was designed to be a grand awakening in America. It was supposed to sort of parallel the story in the Bible of Jonah, the prophet entering Nineveh. He was given 40 days to turn things around and invoke a kind of great awakening. And the people that pitched this event were saying that America right now needs a great awakening, otherwise, it's one way or the other. So it says extreme rhetoric that this is kind of the last call for America. And of course, this message must be okay with the powers that be. They opened up the Capitol and all the monuments to these people. Um, but when you think of the zeitgeist out there, particularly people that are kind of tuned in and a little bit on the awake side, what we see going on is a grand sleep like we've never. I mean, if you just listen to truther videos, most people have their minds blown about the level of sleep that's fallen upon uh, mm, the world population, but especially Americans. And we could attribute this to social engineering, and I've suggested a bit of magic, but we seem to be prepared for a sort of grand invocation toward this new direction or this new world order. And it's part of the what's sweeping the world and the masks and preparing us for the injections and so forth. And so a lot of things that are going on seem so intense for the people that are a little bit more awake. And to see that most people are seem to be part of a grand slumber, that just don't see the direction of all this. They don't seem to respond to the facts. And what I'm going to suggest here is that Jonathan Kahn and his group are onto something. And what just hit me today is that the tables, I believe, very rapidly are going to change. And I believe the same social engineering and the same magical spells and invocations that have brought about the great sleep are going to suddenly be reversed. And again, in my book, I've a big piece of that end times piece for me is a campaign toward Armageddon. And I've always felt that the last piece of this grand deception in this grand conspiracy against God and man is the manufacturing of this war, which is a critical piece of the Armageddon narrative, that's going to set the stage or be a part of the workings of the Antichrist and the mark of the beast. And sometimes I almost feel silly sort of saying these things, but it's almost more silly to deny that they're taking place and we're being prepared for them. So, what exactly is happening? What changed in my thinking? Well, let me address that. So, the shape of this grand awakening within this great sleep. Well, one thing we can observe over the last 7 months is there was an almost magical activation of, we'll call it the political left. They took to the streets in a way that boggles the minds of most people. And I think these people are being prepared for the next world order, probably with, sort of a socialist flavor to it. And others observe this and I think have a desire for stability and peace and normal things like that. Um, I believe just as the left has been activated, so shall the right and many places in between soon be activated. I think information is going to be forthcoming, and what seems like a great sleep, I think through social engineering and a little touch of magic, we are going to see people rapidly turning around, questioning the lockdowns, the masks, the direction of the impending vaccines. And there's going to be this sort of great awakening. But I will suggest that this is a manufactured awakening. and that it's a problematic awakening. And that's what I want to dwell on for just one moment. I want to introduce a channel right now that I've been exposed to. This is a lone voice out there, and I'm going to attempt to present his thesis and a couple um, additional ideas and maybe slight problems I have with the thesis. The channel out there is called E511 Ministries, and he also explores the idea of a false apocalypse. And here's the idea, and I hope I do it justice. I really enjoyed his take on the event called The Return and his videos building up to that. His idea is that what he will call the New World Order has been constructed. It's a Gnostic construction. People that many of us are familiar with, like Alice Bailey and David Icke and Alex Jones and Wilcock and people like this, they've been part of this Gnostic movement. And he says from its very origin, it's all about exposing the evil, the darkness in the world. And Gnosticism is the light in the world that's going to do battle with the evil forces, and he thinks that the New World Order has been constructed in order to um, have it seemingly destroyed by this light, which is a false light. It's a very provocative idea, and it's got me thinking a little bit. I wasn't entirely convinced of the idea because all I see around me are sleeping people. So something has just kind of clicked in my mind that there's about to be truly, particularly on the political right, an awakening. Um, so, how he sees this, you have to kind of see it in light of Revelation 17, passages 16 through 18. And he sees the Gnostic light taking on the New World Order. Another way of saying that would be he sees the beast uh, taking on the harlot. And to cut to the chase, he sees the harlot as being it's Jerusalem, the sort of um, the failed bride, and he sees it in particular as sort of the cabal, the Rothschild cabal, and it's going to be destroyed by this Gnostic power. In my own mind, I just think something is moving toward that direction. I'm going to make a couple tweaks to his idea, and I'm going to present those. Um, First of all, why I think there's something that's about to radically change, I can't explain it. It just came to me. It doesn't seem to appear to be out there. But I just believe as heavily as this sleep came over on people, it's going to very shortly flip around. And there's going to be this massive awakening to this grand sort of scam. And again, through social engineering and a big dash of magic, people are going to demand some kind of actions are taken. And so I very much think that there's something there with E511's idea. So I am going to leave a link for E511 Ministries down there uh, for his coverage and his take on the return. Very provocative. So I want to go into one point that of agreement, and then I want to diverge a little bit. One central point he is making, and again, he thinks there's going to be a grand Gnostic false awakening for a sort of false apocalypse. Very grand idea at a supernatural level. I'm going to pull a little bit of that down to earth in my take on this. Um, my point of agreement that there's going to be a return to this sort of God of America. And I think it'll be a sort of dangerous patriotism. And I have a slightly different take, but I am generally in agreement with this point. Here's where I'm going to throw something new into this. His entire video collection, and I'm assuming his book, which I have not read, but I'll include the link in there. It looks very interesting. Um, is focused on Gnosticism, and they're interchangeable. The idea of Kabbalah and Gnosticism, but there are some unique features of Kabbalah. I believe there's a force at play in the world today that's essentially a Kabbalistic force. And I'm going to suggest that Kabbalah, at present, with this sort of manufactured events that we're about to see, is controlling both the left and the right, both politically and in terms of forces that are both light and dark. And not that there's not, of course, a supernatural component to all of this, but I believe that whereas he sees the harlot as entirely a cabal of Jews, I'm going to suggest it's a little bit more complex than that. So here's where I'm going to go next. He takes on very provocatively this idea of natural law as being entirely fleshly and a place that's just dangerous from the get go. And I applaud him for taking that bold position, but I'm going to be a little bit more nuanced and suggest that sort of the God of the American Declaration of Independence, the suggested or implied God of the US Constitution, is a sort of middle road God of nature. Natural law, I believe, from a biblical perspective, and again, I'm open to challenges on this, that it does begin with a covenant under Noah, and that it continues and is developed and is embedded to some very real extent in the American Declaration and the American Constitution. And this is where things get tricky. Um, Here's what I believe, that a lot of getting back to that root there's going to be a grand subterfuge, because that return to the God, the natural order of the Constitution, will be where the Noahide laws begin. So what I am thinking, and I hope I'm presenting this in a way that, without the bullet points and so forth. I'm believing that there's going to be a sort of a sense of jury thrown under the bus, but it's going to be very selected. I believe that the Talmudic Kabbalists are going to have a selective group that appears to be part of the destruction of, I believe, I'm not going to use the word fake New World Order, but there's going to be a sort of part of the awakening and part of the sort of victory over of light over darkness is going to be a piece of jewelry. And it's always been sort of a plan with these workers of Talmudic Kabbalah to remove one third of jewelry. So that would be sort of consistent with the plan. And those are people that sort of like touchy stuff during the Holocaust were not really down with the Talmudic Kabbalah agenda or program. So, kind of touchy stuff. But so I believe under the guise of getting back, it's going to be an umbrella for placing the Noahide laws. And we're going to get therefore, I think that is when the Antichrist sort of enters the scene. And under that guise, both uh, Christians, a certain type of Christians will be destroyed, a certain type of Jew will be destroyed, and others. It's a large umbrella. And so I think the Noahide laws will be the pretext and that's controlling of the Talmudic Kabbalists of both light and dark, including Gnosticism. And that's my take on this. Now, and I wish I could develop this more thoroughly right now, but my take on the conflict between the beast and the harlot that he develops very well. I believe um, the final overthrowing or the separation between the beast and the harlot. I believe the ultimate harlot is the Talmudic Kabbalists, and that at one point that and the Noahide laws will be taken off, and the true agenda of the old world religion in its fullest, darkest form will take place. Um, and I believe that's the direction. A lot there. Um, if events change and this seems to be playing out, I may or may not develop this idea, but my take is that I don't think for a second the whole of the Talmudic Kabbalists are going to be taken over by the Gnostic light, and all we'll be left with is the false light. It's a very important concept. I'm largely sold on it. I just want to tweak it a little bit. And that is what I have for everyone today. So, this has been Dr. Deep State, and who knows, I might see y'all again. Thanks for listening.